Hello, and thanks for joining me today for this episode of Communication Connection. I'm your host, Victoria Bailey, and stopping by for conversation today is Senior Communications Manager for the Vice President's Office of the Division of Agriculture, Forestry, and Veterinary Medicine here at Mississippi State University is Miss Mary Kathryn Kight. Hello, Ms. Kight. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. So I know you wear many hats here on Mississippi State's campus, but you started your career in the news industry. Talk a little bit about early influences.
Yeah. Well, I can remember being a little girl and staying up to watch Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs on 2020, when I was a kid. And I guess I don't think it resonated with me then how much I loved the news. But when I got here to Mississippi State, John Ford, who we all know and love in the communication department, he really helped influence me to show me that career path in communication and in public relations. And then I took one class with broadcasting with Karen Brown, who was wonderful, and fell in love with broadcast news.
Yes, ma'am. And so why Mississippi State University? Why this communication program?
Well, I mean, I was always going to go to Mississippi State. That's my dad actually is an entomologist and got his degree here at Mississippi State. And so there was never a question of where I was going to go. This is home to me.
Yes, ma'am. And so now you've graduated and you've gotten into the news industry. Talk a little bit about your first experiences out in the actual field.
Okay. Well, my first job was a news anchor reporter, and I worked at WXVT in my hometown of Greenville, Mississippi. So doing that, I got to wear all the hats. So I was a producer, anchor, reporter, photographer, editor, and got to get a lot of experience and worked really hard. And so that was an opportunity for me to, to build my resume and learn more about the news industry. I'm very grateful for that position that I had at WXVT, and then moved to WAPT in Jackson. And at that time, I was able to work in a top 100 market, which is very exciting to someone in the broadcast news industry, and that was fun.
Absolutely. And so you covered, I'm sure, a gamut of stories. Do you have a favorite one, or most memorable one, rather?
Okay, several. I interviewed Brett Favre the night before he announced that he was going to the Jets. So we went to Hattiesburg and found him at the high school there, drinking out of a water hose, and interviewed him. And but some of the most memorable stories were the ones that you feel like you made a difference. I remember there was a child that had to be taken from a really bad situation that we covered, and you felt like maybe I'm helped a little bit, and just telling the stories that are important to our communities in Mississippi.
Yes, ma'am. And so now you've transitioned out of the news industry into PR. Talk a little bit about that decision, but also talk about why it was important to stick with the field of communication.
Well, it was a natural transition. When my husband and I moved here to Starkville in 2011, I think it was, there was a job opening, at the local hospital for public relations coordinator position, and it was a natural transition to go from that journalism, broadcast news background to public relations. And the great news about the Department of Communication, the emphasis that you can get, so the concentrations, I got a concentration in public relations and also broadcasting. And so I encourage people to do that. It's usually an extra semester. You could possibly knock it out without extra time at school. But because of that training at Mississippi State University, I was able to easily transition from broadcast news to public relations.
And so you talked a little bit about it just now, but anyone, student or otherwise, looking to follow in your footsteps on the news side or the PR side, what advice would you give?
Well, I would say work hard. Be willing to, take a job that's not your dream job in the beginning, and learn all of the different parts because it makes you more valuable. Learn the new technology. Be willing to edit and know how to video and edit and write and stack your show, and it makes you more valuable when you can learn all the different aspects of a certain field.
Absolutely. And so you're in your current position now at Mississippi State. Talk a little bit about what that job description entails.
Yeah. So I work in the Vice President's office for the Division of Agriculture, Forestry, and Veterinary Medicine. And this is one of the divisions for Mississippi State University, but I really feel like it's the heart of who Mississippi State University is. Our number one industry in Mississippi is agriculture. And so we were founded as a land-grant university to serve our state. And Extension is one of those. We have the College of Veterinary Medicine, College of Forest Resources, College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. We've got MAPHIS, which everybody knows the cheese, but also agriculture research, and then our Forest and Wildlife Research Center. And so we have wonderful communication teams throughout the division. I'm fortunate to get to work for Dr. Keith Coble and with Dr. Ashley Brown, who's the Associate Vice President. And some of the exciting things that we are doing right now, like this summer, for instance, we held a conference on the intersection of agriculture and competitive statecraft with Arizona State University, and we did that in Washington, D.C. And so I was there to be able to tell that story and interview very neat people like the chief economist for USDA and generals, Army generals, and talk about the importance of agriculture and national security, because agriculture plays such a role in so many different things. And so one of the things I do is just to help tell those stories and work with our commodity leaders. And right now we're working on Vision 2030, which is a statewide impact for Mississippi in building a road for the future of agriculture and forestry in our state. So to be able to work with those different commodity leaders and our producers and the industry leaders and talk about what we're doing here at Mississippi State and how that's serving our state and how we can continue to grow these industries. Part of my job is to help tell that story. And so I get to be a part of that.
Absolutely. And so you definitely still are a storyteller in your current position. Do you still have to work with journalists in your job?
Absolutely, yeah. And, one of the great things is that I know what it's like to be on the other side, so I know what the journalists are looking for. I'm able to go out and sometimes shoot stories just on my cell phone now, because technology is so wonderful now that you can take a microphone, hook it up to your cell phone, and go out and capture these stories. And I will put those. We have a digital newsletter that I put out once a month, and so I'm able to put those stories in our digital newsletter. So not only am I able to still wear that reporter hat, but also know what the reporters are looking for when you're pitching a story to them.
Yes, ma'am. And so working in the communication field adjacent to just other fields of work, talk about how it's important in general to have strong communication skills no matter what your profession.
Yes, communication is relevant no matter what profession you're in, especially with today in social media, right? I mean, everybody needs to know the basics of communication and the do's and the don'ts. And communication is a part of, we talk about verbal and nonverbal communication, and it's important regardless of what position you're in. It's part of how you represent your employer, yourself, and so I think that it's the best because it's relevant no matter where you are, in life.
Yes, ma'am. And so talk a little bit about, I know you have so many moving parts with your current job. Anything on the horizon, anything you guys have coming up, projects, fun, interesting things?
Yes, well, we're starting the annual report right now, so everybody likes that, right? But I would go back to fall at Mississippi State is just exciting in general, right? But I would go back to that Vision 2030 that we're working on right now with our state leaders, and it's exciting to see how we are looking at possibly new industry that we could bring to our state. We're looking at the cross-laminated timber and bringing that to Mississippi and what that would do for our state's economy. That's exciting. We're looking at how we can get more value-added products for things that we're already growing. So I look forward to seeing where that goes and how this helps support our state's economy.
Yes, ma'am. Second to last question, talk a little bit about finding the focus for the stories that you're telling today. Obviously, from a journalistic lens, you would be finding the 5 W's.
Yeah.
Today, kind of what points of focus do you use to find or to tell your stories?
Yep, that's a great question. You know what? This is what I say. Why does it matter? Why does it matter to the people who are reading this? How are we serving our state? So that's great that we're doing this research, but what does it matter to the families at home who are reading about this or watching this? In our newsletter that I talked about, Common Ground, we have a section that says research that matters. And so we give a little line of what we're doing, but then we have underneath there why it matters. And I think that that's so important for people to know because, yeah, we're doing this research, but here's why it matters. Here's why it's making an impact to you and your family and our state. So I think that's what we have to ask ourselves. Why is this important? Why am I telling this story?
And you are echoing one of my PowerPoints from last night's writing class and talking about making the story about a central character. Now, again, I know you're talking about agriculture and things dealing with the Veterinary School of Medicine, but how do you find the central character in your stories?
You know, I think that you have to share who our people are. This isn't just a researcher that's, in a white coat and with doctor in front of their name. This is a person who cares about what they're doing. And I think, personalizing these stories is what really matters and what helps tell that story better.
Perfect. Well, is there anything else you want to add about your job description, the news industry, public relations in general?
Yeah, I would just say that I'm so grateful to Mississippi State University. It's been a part of my life for forever, and it's equipped me with what I needed. We now have the Masters of Communication, and that's exciting. And, I'm grateful that they prepared me for this career, but not only, for this career, they're friends now. These people who used to be my professors are friends and somebody I can still call to get advice. And, I think that just speaks for itself.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Kight, for talking to me. And thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope to see you back next time.